Welcome, Highlander fans, to Blooded Kings, a Highlander podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. On the show, we cover everything in the Highlander universe. On this episode, we're going to be discussing on Blooded Kings, episode 174, Starlog Magazine, April issue in 1986, number 105, the Highlander article from Highlander, 1986, the first film. We haven't discussed the magazines yet, and we're going to show some love to Starlog here. But I can't do this alone. I got to get here my fellow immortal brother here, my co-host, Mr. Lee Fillingsness. What's going on, brother?
Well, I mean, I'm packed and I'm stacked, especially in the back, brother. I've got to thank my mother for a butt like this. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Like I said, it's good to be chatting Bloody Kings again. We've taken some time off here. We're talking, of course, a little Highlander here on the Fandom Podcast Network, and we are going to be celebrating Starlog, and more specifically, the Highlander articles on there. And we got a lot of fun stuff. We're going to talk a little history with Starlog itself, and then we're going to get into the magazine itself and highlight, of course, the article. But Lee, I want to take you down a little bit of memory lane here because we've had some previous Highlander episodes, and it's been a while since we've done some. We recently, of course, got back together with Richard Martin, and we did Two of Hearts, where we actually discussed the dailies he sent me from most of his episodes, and it was kind of nice doing a little playing the video of his daily and showing the on-set locations that he did for Two of Hearts.
That was a pretty cool one. Follow up to 172, which we did last year, where he was a good sport about letting us kind of tear that episode apart. It was his last time doing Highlander. It was obviously an emotional one, but probably not one of the most well-regarded episodes of television ever made, much less Highlander. But
yes, we did the fixing on Two of Hearts, where it's been a series we've done for a while, where we go back and on these really bad rated IMDb episodes of Highlander, and we figure out how we would fix him. And we got the director of the episode, Richard Martin, on to help fix it for us. And so he was a great sport. We brought him back to talk about the dailies, which was a lot of fun. And of course, we've covered a lot of other stuff over the years too. It's been a lot of fun, man. We did TV series Best Flashbacks. We also covered the Gathering season 1. We also did a nice review of the Highlander 4K edition with Jonathan Melville. And we also did our own Highlander reboot movie, What If We Were in Charge? That was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, of course, we did a nice Richie Ryan retrospective. We did the Highlander Immortal Weddings that with the Vampire Until Death. That was kind of inspired because of me and my wife Erin getting married. I think that was your idea.
Yeah, well, and it also fit into like that series we've been doing with actors playing more than one role.
Yes.
So that was a really fun little bit. Like, oh yeah, we got this guy in that one, and blah blah blah. And that was just Jeremy Brunel was just a compelling character or actor, no matter which character he was playing. So I think, thinking back now, if we're going to be making our ideal Highlander, I think he should be in there somewhere.
Yeah, he definitely made made a case for those roles. But then you also we had a fun one too, where you kind of hosted a Highlander screening at your Parkway Theater.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. You did that.
Yeah, in the middle of like a blizzard, we still had 100 people show up. I did Q&A, a little bit of a trivia contest, had a lot of fun, brought one of my students in, actually working with her on another movie currently. So like there's just it was a blast. And she had never seen
you have done something I have not. You have done something I have not yet done yet. I've seen the original Highlander on the big screen, and I'm waiting to. And I hope it shows around sometime in my lifetime. I need to see it. Maybe for the 40th, we'll see. But hopefully, I won't have to wait that long. We've had some.
Say, like the transitions are what really make it impressive. When you see it, like they go from
present day to flashbacks. Yeah,
like that Mona Lisa one is unbelievable on a big screen. Like you have to do it, dude.
I will. We also covered the Highlander reunion, a little mini movie that came out in 2008. We also, of course, this was a fun one. We covered the Lorenzo Lamas TV series, The Immortal. We also covered Duncan MacLeod's Deadliest Immortal Opponents. We got more here. This is a lot of fun. We did what was it? Antonio
Callus.
Not
Callus.
Kept saying Kalis from the Klingon from Deep Space Nine. And then we also did our own fixing of Highlander 2, which was a lot of fun. And we also did the 30th anniversary retrospective. We did a Band of Brothers Revisited. We also did the best Highlander quickenings. That was a lot of fun. We also did one of the fixings too of Bad Day in Building A. And I think
the best fixing to do with that one is burn it with fire.
Yes. Yes. We also did one of my favorites too, is we did a retrospective on the 1977 movie The Duelist that inspired the original Highlander. And we did a little crossover with our good friend Adam O'Brien from Lethal Mullet, who covers action films here on the Fandom Podcast Network, where we discuss the 1995 Christopher Lambert film, The Hunted, which we made a case should have been a Highlander movie.
It was better than that other Highlander movie that came out that year.
Yeah.
And it kind of fit the theme a little bit better, too.
Yeah. And then we had a fun podcast with my wife and I where we did 35th anniversary celebration part 2, where we went to Scotland and UK and London area and visited as many Highlander locations as we could. And that was a lot of fun. So, and of course, got together with our friends, our other Highlander podcast friends as well, and we celebrated 30th anniversary of Highlander with Highlander Hearts and Highlander Rewatch. That was a lot of fun. And then we also did a recap of the Highlander WatcherCon, the online Highlander convention that we did. That was a lot of fun, and you got to do some hosting on that too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, we both did, but I kind of got to interview Anthony DeLongis, F. Braun McAsh, Adrian Paul, Gillian Horvath was in there. A couple of the directors. Is like, this is a unique fandom in that. I mean, I think I'm cool as hell, but most people would disagree with me. But I was able to interview, these guys that like gave me, daydreams to try to live up to when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I mean, that's pretty cool that I got to do that and have real conversations instead of that, 5-minute, little blurt something out when you're standing in line trying to get an autograph at a convention. Like, we were in there talking to him. And then, I think there was one moment in there where we had, it was you and me and the guys from Philly, and we had Mosby and a couple of the guys from Britain. And they kind of asked, like, where are the ladies? And it's like, well, I mean, we're the podcasters, so, I mean, it was kind of a podcast thing, but like, we immediately had like 9 of, Adrian's Angels and,
right.
Everybody that we're calling out. And pretty much right after that, I think we both jumped into rooms and kind of started engaging with some of the female fans because, I think we all know that the female fan base was what saved them in seasons 3 and 4. And so that, we'd have this thing to talk about, 30 years after it happened.
Yeah, Adrian Angels have been wonderful to nurture the fandom of Highlander, and they've been inspirational, wonderful people to meet throughout the conventions in person as well. Yeah. So, and by the way, this is just kind of a little taste of what Lee and I have done. Make sure you go on YouTube and, of course, Fandom Podcast Network at fpnet.podbean.com for a lot of the audio podcasts before we went, and started doing YouTube here. But yeah, we did a lot of fun stuff. So make sure you guys check it out. But you know what? One of the things that we like to do here at Bloody Kings is we like to visit Joe's and catch up. So let's go ahead. Let's go to Joe's. All right. Well, Joe's is where we like to catch up here, Lee. And we got some stuff that we haven't done Bloody Kings in a while because we've both been very busy. I've been doing a lot of stuff with the network, but you've been real busy, of course, working and acting and fighting. And I'd like to give you a chance to kind of promote your Fight Monkeys and what this is exactly and how busy you've been with it.
Well, people have been listening know that I've been working in film for a while. And one of the things I'm most known for is just doing fight choreography, working as a bad guy. And I developed a reputation as a reliable, safe, and creative person in my field. But there's a lot of people that I work with that aren't as great at the self-promotion as I am, but in some ways much more talented than I am with the performance side of it. The picture that we have up here, this is a lot of my core team. And these are basically the fight monkeys. And if you go back one little thing, that was our logo. That's Furious George, our mascot. You know, and,
if you're listening to this audio podcast, make sure you check out the video so you can see the pictures we're showing.
Yeah, and Fight Monkeys was it's something that I've been calling myself for a while. One of the things that I like to do is not take myself as seriously when I'm on set, because there's a lot of guys that do what I do that just kind of come in like a drill sergeant, and it's, you know, having just admitted self-promotion, it's not self-aggrandizing. I like people to feel comfortable so that if I'm doing a fight scene, they understand that I'm not the big mean person that could kill them but isn't. I am that guy that is safe and fun and not a danger to anybody. Right. So when I put together this group of people that I like to work with on a regular basis, like, they're safe, they're talented, they're reliable. It's just like, okay, well, you know, you're gobble gobble one of us, you know, came up Fight Monkeys, because nobody else is calling themselves that. It's not as strange as some of the other fight team names we come up with. But even if you look at 5150, that's a code in Los Angeles County for like somebody having a psychotic break. So we
also also the first Van Halen album that had Sammy Hagar.
Yeah. But the group that you see there on the far right of the picture, that's one of my oldest friends, Joe. We just celebrated our silver maniversary because we met 25 years ago this month.
A maniversary? I like that.
Yeah. Then I've got just a great collection, like front and center. That's David and Teresa Alvarado. This picture was actually taken on the set of their movie Tuesday in Stone. Right next to me is Nick Kreckler. Been working with him, producing side. He just directed a movie for me, but worked with him as a producer and as a casting agent a couple times. We've got Cam, Natalie, Doug, Kevin. Relied on these guys for just tons of fights over the years, different performances. Nice. And when you have people that you know you can trust, it makes it so that, like, I don't need to drill the safety in, because I know what they're safe with, and They know how to communicate what isn't. So now I can just start, instead of step 1, I can start at step 8 and put the fights higher and higher. But what I'm also trying to do is build their careers.
This picture is really cool. They look sharp. You guys are all dressed in black. You're the tallest, so you're on the very back there. I see your noggin. Yeah, this is a cool picture of your group, man. I like this.
What was really fun about this one too is I wasn't performing in this. I actually got to wear comfy shoes and not exert myself any more than just carrying the guns back and forth to the car. I was the armorer on this, so the guns that you see Elise carrying there, and I think Mario and Cam have them in the background. I basically provided a whole bunch of safe firearms, which has become another part of my job. After the whole Rust incident, which I will lay the blame firmly on the armorer's feet. That is what we're supposed to do.
This is the recent on death tragedy of the Western that was being done, starring Baldwin.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, I know that he'll feel guilt the rest of his life for being the guy that pulled the trigger.
Alec Baldwin, the star, by the way. Yeah.
And it was, but I've been providing safe firearms now for the last 4 years to sets all over the Midwest.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, and so this was kind of when David and Teresa came to me with this. I'm like, can I put some really cool guns in there? Because I don't want to just do M4s like everybody else has got. So we've got like the Steyr AUG is what Kevin was carrying. You know, we got
real quick. The gun that the girl on the left is carrying. What's the name of that weapon called again?
That's a Heckler & Koch MP7.
The reason why I asked that I watch a lot of 80s action films, and like the Uzi is the preferred weapon, the Uzi 9mm of like a lot of 80s. This seems to be the new Uzi.
You
in a
know,
lot of movies.
it's made by the same company that made the gun that replaced the Uzi, the MP5 that you see John
Right.
McClane using. And it's having fired the real thing. It's sort of a perfect best of both worlds kind of gun.
Yeah.
You know, it's good at short and intermediate range. It's good. It's a pistol caliber that you can still cause some damage with. It's chambered in 5.7.
I bring it up because we recently on the network here in Fandom Podcast Network, we did a couch potato theater for a Long Kiss Goodnight. I believe that was the first time I remember seeing that gun there, or something similar, a precursor to it. But anyway, just wanted to mention
I think that one's a Bruger and Thomas. Another one that's like one of those $5,000 ones. But yeah, very similar profile.
What do you guys have coming up with Fight Monkeys that people could look out for?
Well, we've got Tango de Muerte, which is the big thing that Nick just finished directing for me. It is a giant assassin tango fight that has been on my wish list for the last several years. I had just a dream cast. David and Teresa, Doug was in there. Natalie actually fought Nick. Joe was my sound guy on there. Cam in the back, and another fantastic actress, Jade. A couple more of my guys, including Chika Chan, Holly Boer, Baron Brooks, Reem Khan. We just basically, awesome, I wanted to put together a fight that showcased not just like, okay, we're going to do something brutal and cool. I wanted over the top, like almost Looney Tunes, like, oh, we don't need to be defined by reality. We just wanted to be stylized. And it was just way too much fun. And I was dressed as a cowboy. I used 6 guns and then a big Bowie knife and then a sword.
When this movie becomes available, or parts of it or links to it, please share it on Bloody Kings. I'd love to hear that. Love to see it. So that sounds
absolutely
cool. That's awesome, man. Proud of you. Very, very cool.
Well,
before we head on out of Joe's, man, I have to bring up, we have to do the update, as we always do, the new Highlander film starring Henry Cavill. There's been some updated information, and it's happening. It's legit as we can get here. And I have to give a shout out to my good friend Stevie McLeod, living there, of course, in Scotland. And he says, hey, this came up in the Scottish Sun online article here. I think it was also in the papers. And there's a big thing saying lights, camera, action. Huge new feature film to be shot in Scottish beauty shots. Details of the film are kept under wraps, but one Hollywood blockbuster was previously confirmed to be shot in summer of 2025. And this came out January 25th here. And I have some pictures, screenshots of what was part of the article. And I don't know if you saw this or read this, but it says that there's something happening here. The London-based casting collective, the UK's top agency for movie extras, is leading the hunt for the shoot in summer of this year. But hopefuls must be local to the area or have a base within driving distance of the Highlands. The ad promises good rates of pay for anyone aged 16 or over. It reads, looking for people of all ages, genders, and ethnicities for a huge feature film shooting in summer of 2025 in various locations throughout the Scottish Highlands. The casting call adds, we're particularly interested in hearing from deaf, disabled, and we'll work with you to ensure your access needs are met. Details of the upcoming motion picture are being kept tightly under wraps. Last year it was revealed that the reboot of the iconic 80s classic Highlander will be filmed in Scotland during summer 2025, with none other than Superman star Henry Cavill taking on the lead. We previously told that Cavill 41 has been tapped into his Scottish roots for inspiration as he gears up for the hotly anticipated flick. Now, Lee, this coincides with some recent articles that have been coming out. That came out in the end of November of last year in 2024 that, it's happening. We are shooting in summer. And there were some interviews with Chad Stahelski confirming that we are on rolling here. He wasn't really giving out much information on exactly when and where, but there was people saying that he was scouting locations. So some people were saying in other Highlander groups that this could not necessarily be Highlander. What are your thoughts?
Until I see set pictures from a new Highlander movie starring Henry Cavill, I mean, we've been talking about this since lockdown, I think.
Yeah, before that, actually.
Yeah, so
before COVID, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would love it if it was true. I've got friends in the Highlands. You got friends in the Highlands that would just eat this up.
Yeah.
And I think if anyone's going to do it justice, it's Cavill and it's Stahelski. I mean, Chad was able to make judo interesting in John Wick 1. And was able to integrate combat tactics, empty hand to knife to pistol, rifle, shotgun, and have it all make sense and have it look like it's something that the same guy learned. If anybody is going to figure out what Connor McLeod or Duncan McLeod or Kevin McLeod, whoever it happens to be in this new movie, if anyone's going to figure out what that synthesis of style is going to be, it's those guys. I mean, 5150 guys are incredibly talented, incredibly insane, and able to really do some cool stuff with the choreography. I absolutely hope it happens. I'm not going to hold my breath because I've already passed out and hit my head enough times. But I think I'm looking forward to it.
Well, both these articles state in the same interview with Chad, and because Henry Cavill's been a busy guy, and he's on deck. He's also got he's playing Sherlock again in Enola Holmes 3. He's going to be doing the Warhammer 40K movie adaptation. Now there's rumors that he's going to be in one of the Star Wars films, maybe a villain, because there's like 3 or 4 Star Wars films that are in the works right now because it's something we want to do. But Highlander doesn't have an official release date, but it's expected to hit theaters sometime in 2026. So that would add up if they're going to go into production in September. And then hopefully I'm probably going to guess maybe late September or late 2026 sometime. But there's hope here, at least that the news seems positively.
Yeah.
We will see. So I'm excited. Anyway, let's head on out of Joe's. All right. It says Highlander Bloody Kings episode 174. And I did tease on our Bloody Kings Facebook group, that we're going to be covering the Starlog magazine, basically. And this particular one right here that I'm holding in my hand, this was probably the first big article about Highlander. It got the cover, of course. And this was released, I think it was released, April of 1986. And if you guys remember, March 7th of 86 was when the original Highlander was released in theaters. So obviously they were getting interviews done. People were getting excited about the franchise. But I did have some people on Bloody King, a couple people shouted out. Bonnie Gwen Fahey says, very cool. I've been collecting Starlogs that have articles about Highlander. 2 sounds like fun. And of course, my friend Vince Stefanelli said, I had one of them. I do have a couple of the Kung Fu mags with Adrian Paul on the cover. Did you ever get any of those Kung Fu mags with Adrian Paul?
Not Kung Fu. I did get, I believe, an issue or 2 of Blade, but Kung Fu was one that was kind of iffy back in the day. I did black belt. I'm Mr. Fancy Pants sometimes, but my martial arts magazines need to meet a certain criteria. But
well, I think this is going to be an interesting thing to cover because Starlog holds a special place in our heart. So let's go ahead and get to some Starlog action here, guys. Now, Lee, I did want to say that the reason why I brought this to the table for us to discuss on Bloody Kings was that on Bloody Kings, we pride ourselves on covering all facets of Highlander. We've covered the movies, of course, the audiobooks, the cartoon back in the day when Norm was my co-host, and of course the television series. But we've never talked about like print stuff, really. We haven't done books or anything yet. We haven't done anything. And I wanted to also kind of scratch another itch, was my love for Starlog. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But then it was like choosing which Starlog to talk about first. And I did want to tease John Mosby, friend of the show, of course, author of Highlander book himself. He had done an article for Highlander 3, and we had him on the network recently on Culture Clash talking about our favorite shows and movies of 2024. And I had to like bug him, like, dude, I need to find this this Highlander article that you did on Starlog. And he was able to let me know. I think I know which one it is. So maybe that'll be one that we cover later, and we'll have him on. But Starlog has an interesting history, guys. And if you're a fan, back before the internet, there was limited ways to basically, get the information that we wanted on our favorite movies and TV series. And I know there were other magazines out there, Lee, that covered our fandom other than Starlog. Do you remember any of them?
Not really, because where I was Midwest. And you'd sort of see these in the weird grocery stores or like, newsstands. I just dated myself because they had that. But you'd have this one and Fangoria, and I think Cine Fantastique were the three that you'd see. And
that was here in the States. I know the UK had their versions too. Yeah.
But like the first time I actually ever saw or noticed Starlog, I was at a Half Price bookstore, and I was just flipping through, and I saw like a Return of the Jedi one, and I'm like, oh, I was one of those early adopters of collecting Star Wars back in 87, 88. And so I was flipping through, and I'm like, oh, they interviewed the guy that played Crix Madine. This is going to be an interesting read.
Well, a little history here on Starlog is it was one of those go-to magazines that covered a lot of stuff for us nerds. A lot of the science. It covered a lot of science fiction, a lot of fantasy. It didn't cover like Time would cover current news and stuff. It was all about movies and TV series and books too, by the way. But the first issue came out in 1976, August of 1976. And that was a Star Trek cover. And I have a picture here. It was issue number 1. And it's got the original cast up there with Kirk and Spock celebrating Star Trek. That was the first. It was inspired by, of course, Star Trek as well. I'm sure the name had something to do with it. But the one that I remember was issue number 7. It had one of the most iconic Star Wars images on it with the TIE fighter shooting on the X-Wing. That was issue number 7. That's when I first remember hearing about Starlog, because I saw this on, the grocery store stand or something like that. And I think my parents got it. I remember looking through it one time in my life when I was young. But I do remember that Starlog was a little more expensive than your newspaper, so I didn't always get it. Even though it was cheap back then, it was like $1.50. It wasn't like your comics, which are like 25, 50 cents back in the day. But do you remember the Star Wars cover?
I remember seeing it later. I bought them secondhand, but I do remember digging into Starlog the first time and just realizing, oh, it's the fan conversation. I think that this is like the granddaddy of what you and I are doing now.
Yeah.
Because and I was thinking about this in the run up, like there's the conventions have changed a lot. Used to be just like you'd stand in line, you'd kind of see something, you'd have the Q&As, and now it's a big production. But this really was that discussion of fandom. And as much as I just joked about it, it's like the only time you'd ever get to hear what the guy that played Crix Madine, felt about, the industry and the legacy that he had.
They did get some, more of the major stars too in some of these interviews, which is cool. But, a lot of the articles, of course, were, done by a fan's perspective as well, or a review and stuff like that. And some of them were pretty cool exclusive. But, it's funny when we look back, magazines are harder and harder to find now and becoming more expensive, kind of a niche thing. You can't find them everywhere. Remember newsstands on the side of the street? Those don't exist anymore. Now you have to go to Barnes and Nobles, which is the only like big brick and mortar store that's still around, I think.
Well, and like Barnes and Noble used to be like you'd have the magazines kind of stacked in a layer, so like you'd have like kind of half the cover and half the cover and half
Yeah.
the cover, and now you've got plenty of space for two magazines or two of the same issue to be side by side. You know, it's going away, and the magazines have to sell more ad space, and it's not what it used to be, unfortunately, said the old guy.
Well, we want to ask whatever happened to Starlog. Where is it now? Well, Starlog Magazine number 374 of April of 2009 was the last issue. I got a picture of it here too. And this showcased monsters and aliens. Put on your 3D glasses for monsters and aliens on the cover. And the last issue was published in April of 2009. And it included shows like Fringe, the American movie Push, good movie, by the way, the animated stop motion film Caroline, and of course, Monsters vs. Aliens. Starlog was, of course, a monthly science fiction magazine created in 1976, focused primarily on Star Trek at its inception. Kerry O'Quinn and Norman Jacobs were its creators, and it was published by Starlog Group, Inc. In August 76, Starlog was one of the first publications to report on the development of the first Star Wars movie, and it followed development of what would eventually become Star Trek the Motion Picture in 1979. Starlog was born out of Star Trek fandom craze, but also was inspired by the success of the magazine Cinefantastique. Thank you. Which was the model of Star Trek and Star Wars coverage. Starlog, though it called itself a science fiction magazine, actually contained no fiction. The primary focus of the magazine, besides the fact that it was mostly based on Star Trek fandom, was the making of science fiction media, books, films, and television series, and the work that went into these creations. The magazine examined the form of science fiction and used interviews and features with artists and writers as its foundation. And then in April of 2009, Starlog officially ended its time in print, moving 33 years of material into the Internet Archive. All of these files have been removed from the Internet Archive no later than 2022. Now, I was sad to hear about this, man. Warehouse fire on December 5th, 2007. A warehouse operated by Cable News in Oregon, Illinois, which contained all back issues of Starlog and Fangoria magazines, was destroyed by a fire. As back issues of Starlog are not reprinted, the only remaining back issues are now housed in private collections for those available on the secondary market. Dude, this sucks, man. Can you imagine all of that history just going up in flame?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of relevant to what's going on now, too, in Los Angeles. But I just think about all the work that went into making that. You know, I mean, I worked on a school newspaper bajillion years ago, and just the week by week work that goes into it, you know, on a school level, and then you take that to, you know, international sci-fi level, the love of the fans of making it, like it's one of those things, like, it's not the most important thing, but it's sad.
Yeah,
you know? Like
it's
a bummer.
So Starlog, the reason why it ended in 2009 was the Starlog publisher Creative Media, including 8 affiliates, filed for bankruptcy in March of 2008, unfortunately. 2009 of March, Starlog became a sister site, a website to Fangoria Magazine's official site with a new web address tied to Fangoria. And, you know, that didn't really, you know, by the end of 2009, readers only access to back copies for the Internet Archive, while this worked until at least 2016. The Internet Archive removed the data from its service by no later than 2022, replacing previous links with the statement, "This item is no longer available." In April 2014, Fangoria announced that Starlog, of course, returns in the summer of 2014, but that fizzled out as well. So I want to ask you, Lee, remembering Starlog, what did Starlog mean to you?
Well, in the pre-internet days, this was how you found the cool collector stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have Craigslist, we didn't have eBay, we didn't have Facebook Marketplace, but you go into Starlog, and I would send checks in the mail to get collectibles from random guys, you know, in Illinois.
Put ads in these things, right?
Yeah. And I'm remembering, like, Lee's Toy Review started out there. Not this Lee, another one. but and those guys ended up becoming big. It was also like, because you had to search far and wide for another nerd in small town Iowa. It took a while. So this was kind of like, okay, this is how you have that conversation. Somebody else is talking, and you get to learn a little bit more, and you also get to see little bits of what's already come before, and stuff that would come out later. I remember seeing you had a picture up from 1979, one of their issues, and that was the first time I realized that Black Hole was not made 10 or 15 years before Star Wars. It was made after. And I'm like, how was this wasn't made in 1963? How did that happen? Like, Disney, come on.
Yeah. This magazine hits a really loud nostalgia chord for me, and I never saved my issues. Unfortunately, I didn't think they'd become collectible. I would read them and then throw them out later. And I didn't, back then I wasn't really collecting comics as much as I would a little bit later, but it was where I would get updated news. And sometimes they would have like, cool stuff you could order. I was the one that we're going to be talking about. I'm actually looking at an ad here for discount soundtrack shopper,
Yeah.
For like the movie Lassiter, with, Tom Selleck's World War II film, and The Last Starfighter, and Close Encounters, and Top Secret. You can order all of these through this ad here. And then also too, dude, there's an ad in here for Starlog back issues, right?
Yeah.
And I immediately go to like issues, like, do they have issue number 1? Nope. But they did have issue number 2. And I'm looking at like the prices for back issues for number 2, 3, 4. You're spending about $4 or $5, and then then it drops to like $4 and $3 for other ones back then. So there's just it's fun to look back in this, because it is a stamp in time when you look at these issues nowadays, dude.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, I find it hard to believe that there was something you threw away, given your background right now. Like, I'm looking at every DVD ever made, every one of the Deadpool cups. I'm seeing, the Alien. I've seen.
Are you talking about my popcorn buckets back here?
Oh yeah, and yeah, and I believe I see, one of the figuring down on the modal nodes, little clarinets back there. Like,
you have a spy eye. Yeah,
yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, Starlog. I love Starlog. I miss it. I love finding old issues when I'm kind of thumbing through comics, either at conventions or comic book stores. And that was one of the things that inspired us to talk a little Highlander about Starlog, because Highlander was covered many, many times. All the movies had something covered in there. The TV series, including The Raven. Starlog had someone on point talking about Highlander, and that's why I wanted to talk about this particular issue right here, the original Highlander film, 1986. But before we talk about the article, Lee, I did want to highlight some of the other articles in this issue to kind of take you back in time to 1986 when this issue came out. And one of the first one we're going to talk about here in the Starlog issue of number 105, April of 1986, is they had an interview with Walter B. Gibson, the creator of The Shadow. Alec Baldwin did a Shadow movie. Do you remember the Shadow comic? And also, I think it was like a radio show too, as well.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it was. I saw the premiere of The Shadow in Chicago, and I saw the remake that Christopher Nolan did that he called the Batman trilogy.
Yes.
It's every plot point in The Shadow happens in Christopher Nolan's trilogy. It is like one of the most underrated, like, just things. I love it.
I have a soft spot for the Alec Baldwin The Shadow one. I'm actually going to revisit. I got it on Blu-ray recently. I'm going to revisit.
There's not enough Penelope Ann Miller in the world. We need more.
This is true. This is true. Yes. The other article coming next. Wait, actually, did I do this one right here? Yeah, here we go. So this is a little tease about aliens are coming. This is an article about the upcoming some movie called Aliens, a sequel to Alien by James Cameron, and there's a little write up here about it. Of course, referencing Terminator. This is really cool because it's teasing what was going to become one of the biggest summer blockbusters and one of the most quoted movies of all time. One of the best sequels of all time was Alien. Do you remember this?
I did not ever see this episode before, or this issue before we started doing this, but I think this is one of those things that made Starlog cool. Is they would talk about this before it came out, because you just have like previews in the theater. Do you remember those little trivia things that they'd have? Like, threefold, like, and they like, oh yeah, we've got this coming up. Like, that was all we had other than Starlog to talk about these movies. We didn't have, I mean, other than like HBO used to do those, coming attractions, but it was always about something that was already out.
The next article they have here is the complete guide to the VTV series. I didn't watch this until within the last 10 years ago. I knew what V was, but I finally got caught up and watched the original V and then the VTV series. So there's a nice write up on that as well. Were you ever a fan of V?
Oh, I watched this as it came out. I wanted a replica of the guns.
Yes.
It was crazy. I remember watching this because it was like my first or second grade. I was at like a sleepover. One of the first kids I knew that had a VCR had recorded it. And so that was what we were doing. All the boys in class were watching V, and we were just like, this is amazing. This is what we will do when those damn aliens get to our planet. We're going to fight back.
The next we have here is a movie I have not seen, is the Manhattan Project here with John Lithgow. They did a nice little article on that. Did you see this movie?
I love this movie. The kid basically figures out how to make a bomb. And part of it's from the science class. Part of it, he's got an internship and he has access to plutonium. And he figures out how to make it, just like from a scientific standpoint. He does it. And John Lithgow is his professor and realizes he's going on. And you know how at a young age you kind of mix a whole lot of movies together?
Yeah.
In my head, this was also Real Genius, My Science Project, and Real Science.
Nice. I got to put that on the watch list. I appreciate that. That's great.
I'd really recommend it. It does a pretty fantastic movie.
The next
by Lithgow too.
The next we have is a Starlog profile on Mia Sara. Of course, a lot of people, of course, know her from Ferris Bueller, but she was also in a movie called Legend. And the article goes, Starlog profile on Mia Sara, innocence with an edge. An enchanting young actress realizes her own fantasy, cavorting with unicorns and consorting with pixies in a fairy tale world of Ridley Scott's Legend. Boy, did I have a crush on her for a while.
Yeah, I just wish that movie had been good.
I know. It was, yeah. The next article that was showcased was the Starlog profile on Colin Baker, the sixth incarnation of Doctor Who. Colin Baker, the cat who walks by himself. Were you a fan of Doctor Who at all?
My dad was a Tom Baker guy.
Yeah, me too. My mom was. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I remember, when they started doing the reboots with Eccleston. Eccleston is kind of my doctor.
Dude, me too.
I like the really grumpy, angry ones.
I loved Eccleston. I loved that season he did.
Yeah, and then I can't believe I'm blanking on the name. He played Kilgore, Angels and Demons.
Yeah. Oh, geez, I'm forgetting the names of the doctors here, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But yeah, and yet I could pull Sylvester McCoy out of my hat.
Yes.
Yeah, but no, this was in this period, like he was the guy that was on PBS. So I remember seeing this, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this. He looks like a kids show host. Look at that outfit. Like,
yeah,
it looks like he's going to teach me that reading is fun. Demental.
So the next article I thought was really cool. This was Planet of the Apes Revisited. Producer Arthur P. Jacobs and the sequel makers meet in the world of Hollywood past and lead Charlton Heston, James Franciscus, and Kim Hunter to the nightmare future beneath the Planet of the Apes. And I'm not a huge Apes fan, but I did recently at a flea market pick up all of the original Apes films in a DVD collection. And I'm not a fan of the newer ones with all the CG. And my biggest hang up of the new apes is that I don't find them as scary or intimidating as the more humanoid ones that were wearing human clothes. Those still scare the crap out of me. But this is a nice article on the apes. Are you an apes fan?
I was until I realized that they were able to be taken over by Spaceballs. That's just, I mean, shit, there goes the planet.
Nice. Good call out there. I love that.
I didn't like the old ones. I didn't. The new ones, I get why people like them. I think both of us are just the wrong generation to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And the Tim Burton one was god awful.
It wasn't story-wise. It was bad, but man, the prosthetics and the makeup was fantastic on that movie, though. It's the only thing it really had going for it. So, what?
Oh yeah, I was agreeing with you. Tim Roth was probably the best bad guy ape ever.
Yeah, he was good. The last article I'm going to highlight here before we get to the Highlander article here is an interview. It's called the Starlog Profile on the Grace and Wit. See what they did there? Of Star Trek, Grace Lee Whitney. The actress performed yeoman's service aboard the Enterprise for 7 episodes, recalls her days as Captain Kirk's space geisha. So they had a nice article here with Grace Lee Whitney. What do you remember Grace?
Oh yeah, I mean, who doesn't remember Yeoman Rand? I think it's interesting to kind of think about all the other good female roles that they had on Star Trek, and then this. Because I mean, you've got Nurse Chapel, you've got Uhura, and then you have a bevy of girls that say, "What is kiss?" And then and then she's kind of right in the middle of that.
Yeah.
So
all right, well, let's go ahead and get into the main section of the show. So we're going to be celebrating Starlog right here, issue number 105, April of 1986, because it is showcasing Highlander. And that's what we love. We love here at Highlander. There's some really cool pictures, and we're going to showcase the article on the slideshow as well. But Lee and I are going to take turns reading excerpts, or actually, we're reading the whole article because it's really that long. But it's funny, though. I don't remember getting this issue when it first came out because I didn't see the original Highlander when it came out in the theater. I caught it on VHS later, and then I caught Highlander 2 in the theater. But this issue kind of bypassed me until I started seeing it crop up a little bit later and stuff like that. Do you remember when this issue first came out?
No, I really don't. This was, again, a few years before I even knew the magazine existed. There's one other thing I wanted to point out in the opening pages of the thing when they have like the index. They're talking about Japanimation, and that was what we used to call anime way back in the day.
Yes,
animation. It's gone through like a whole bunch of different names, but I think anime is the right one. But they're talking about stuff that very much part of this world, and you can kind of see the Voltron thing. But this was really the beginning of those years. We had a few shows that were on Nickelodeon.
That's what they called it because I was watching. I remember Akira was a big deal at this time because it was also R-rated for violence and stuff like that. But also that's when I was watching Robotech. Robotech was required viewing after school in the afternoon. So yeah, Japanimation. That's what they called it, right?
Yeah, and then I remember Nausicaa and the Valley of the Winds was on kind of a constant rotation. Which is a weird show to be watching as an 8-year-old, but that movie makes no sense even now.
Well, let's get into the article here. There's some fun stuff here, and there's a nice spread if you're watching the video here of the opening article spread here. It's got a great shot of Connor McLeod, with his hands being, he's been banished from his clan, and you see the wonderful castle behind him, and there's a couple of insert pictures with him and Heather and him and Ramirez. So I'm going to go ahead and start us off here, Lee, and we'll just kind of go through the article and kind of comment as we go. So it starts off saying, with a dynamic screen presence, most talked about are his charismatic eyes. It's not surprising that Christopher Lambert is on his way to becoming a modern movie idol. He portrayed the fantasy figure Tarzan in Greystoke. Since then, he has starred in movies in his native France with that country's leading actresses. In Subway with Isabella Adjani, directed by Luc Besson. And they quote his last movie was Last Battle, Starlog number 85. And in Love Songs with Catherine the Hunter Deneuve. Now, what's funny, Luc Besson, this is before we really knew he was a household name, where he would go on and do, of course, La Femme Nikita, and of course, a bunch of other films. So
Fifth Element, yeah.
Fifth Element, yeah. Now Lambert is back in an English language film, portraying another epic fantasy figure. In Highlander, Starlog issue 104, he plays the title role of Connor MacLeod, an immortal born in 16th century Scotland. The story charts MacLeod's growing powers in his attempts to triumph over the Kurgan, Clancy Brown, to win the prize, Power Beyond Imagining. Sitting in his trailer on location in the movie in South London, England, the actor enthusiastic about Highlander. Quote, at one point, they offered me the script, Lambert says. I liked the story. I thought it was great to be an immortal. And I thought it was great that half the story was happening in Scotland in 1500 and half in New York, 1986. The contrast was incredible. Now, before I go on here, we wonder how good his English is, because remember, he didn't speak English when he started this.
There's, speaking as a linguist, sometimes it's really easy to read the language even if you can't speak it.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of just through it. So that doesn't, spark too much with me, but I'm kind of wondering why they didn't correct, because he's not native to France. He was born in America and raised in Switzerland.
Yeah. Did you want to catch the next paragraph there?
Yeah, sounds good. Let's see. It starts with, in fact, is that the one?
Yep.
In fact, it's the first script I've read that has everything in it. There are 2 amazing love stories, a lot of action, great acting scenes. There's a mixture, something for everyone. It's also the first time that I've read a script where there are flashbacks which go into the story as if they weren't flashbacks. The flashback is not there to explain something. It goes with the story. It means you can go from New York in 1986, walking down the street, and go straight to Scotland. And it's a continuation of the story instead of an explanation. As a writing matter, that's very difficult to do and to include in a story. I thought it was incredible. And I've got to agree. I think that's one of those things that, we've talked about the technical aspects of Highlander before, but this really does set it apart, that they're kind of just using that as more than just this is why that happened. It informs the story, I think, in a richer way than we'd seen with flashbacks before.
Before I go on to the next paragraph here, what I'm liking about this, it feels like I have not seen a lot of different interviews with Christoph about Highlander, and it seems to be a lot of the same stuff they'll showcase and special features and stuff like that. So this is kind of cool, because I'm feeling like we're getting a new, fresh take on Highlander with him.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, again, this is one of the things that I like about a magazine like this. Everyone else is going to do the same cattle call type of so what was it like working with Sean Connery?
Yeah.
And these are sci-fi fans. They want to get the story. They want to know what, his experience was working on set. And they really don't even start talking about Sean until I think the middle of this thing.
Yeah.
Which
we'll
is
get to that.
Cool way.
So I'll go on here. It says, portraying Tarzan, Lambert was fascinated by the character's duality, man and beast, civilized and primal. MacLeod has similar facets. He begins in Scotland, a young man, but in the New York sequences, he is 450 years old. Quote, what's great is that he's double, Lambert says. When he's in Scotland, he's like a young dog who barks and faces danger without thinking, saying, I want to fight. But when he's 450 years old, he's full of knowledge. He's like the old dog who knows, and he's going to go behind the danger because he knows that there will be a way to win. That's the only difference in Connor MacLeod. I still have the same face. Quote, at the beginning when he's in Scotland, he doesn't know that he's immortal. MacLeod is in a huge battle, and strangely at one point he's looking around and nobody will fight him because people sense something's coming from him. But he doesn't know it. and he says, "Nobody will fight me." Then he turns, and the Kurgan's there for the first time. A man on a black stallion. The Kurgan knows that McLeod is immortal. The only one who doesn't know is McLeod. That's kind of cool to hear a little different version of that.
Yeah, well, and I think also the way that he's looking at the character, the cautious in the modern age and the kind of brash, youth. I think A, that comes across on screen, and B, that's the kind of acting work that a lot of people don't do. They're like, oh, this is Connor McLeod. He is one thing, but that he's able to kind of portray growth and change and have all this stuff really gives his character depth. And I think that's kind of fantastic.
Yeah. And what I like too is that, and this is a term that we started using later in fandom, was that the Kurgan senses that he has the immortal seed, that he's not yet immortal, but he's going to kill him before he becomes immortal. So yeah. You want to hit the next paragraph there, starting with later?
Yeah. Later, the knowledge that he is immortal allows McLeod the freedom to experience any number of situations from whatever viewpoint he desires. I was saying that I had two love stories, Lambert continues. One is with Roxanne Hart, and one is with Eddie Beatty Edney in Scotland, and it's a totally different love story. One's young and fresh. It's the first time the guy was in love. Technically the second. We're forgetting about Kate. He's
Don't
been
go there
banished.
yet.
It's his new life. And the other one is 450 years later. But that's what I like about the character. He's able to go back to being a child and be as happy as you can be when you're 14 or 15, that first time you fell in love. Though Lambert seems to find his character and the story of Highlander endlessly fascinating, he isn't an actor who has much to say about his working methods. For me, acting is being. I've no method. You are the part or you aren't the part. And when I'm on set, I'm the part. When I'm off set, it's me. And that's all.
Dude, so it's interesting to hear how he's like, he has two love interests, and he's making love to two women,
Yeah.
And of course, we're getting that kind of first young love that he's talking about with the Edie, Heather, the Beatty Edney character as well. It's interesting. It seems like I like this because it's like a fresh take. It's a fresh take.
Yeah. I also like that now we've got Castigear, Heather, and Kurgan have all been in live action Highlander.
Yes.
So,
you want to go ahead and hit
Wars, rather.
Hit the next one there. It says, however.
Yeah. However, portraying a Scottish character and later one who has lived over 400 years in many countries and spoken many languages does present its difficulties. Born of French parents, though brought up in Switzerland, Lambert's speaking voice bears a strong French accent and intonation. I have a coach, of course, he explains. That sounds more like Ren from Ren and Stimpy. You idiot! I'm not meant to be American. But I'm meant to have an unrecognizable accent, which is not the case in real life. That's why I need a coach, because McLeod has been through 450 years and he has been everywhere. It would be wrong to have him entirely American. Oh, and I got to change the page here.
Yeah, let's go to the next page here.
Yeah. No, that's not the one. There we are. It would be wrong to have him French or English. He has no accent. In France, they'll probably say this guy's American. In the States, they'll probably say he's from a strange part of the States. You ask yourself, there's a type of mystery about his accent, which goes perfectly with the character. Working to suppress his own accent in order to achieve this mysterious quality has been very time-consuming. It's more difficult, but it's okay, Lambert says. It's absolutely manageable for anybody who already speaks English. You need a good coach. That's what's important.
I want to stop right there because what I love about this part of the article is something that I've gone to appreciate over the years watching this film. And there's that scene in present day 85, 86 where he's in the police office. He's in the police office and he's like, "You sound funny, where are you from?" And he goes, "Lots of places, And I don't know if this was a happy accident that they got someone who didn't know how to speak English well at all, but that he sounds like he could be from all over the world.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think you don't have that happening much before this. You usually have somebody either British playing this. And yes, hello, I'm Connor McLeod of the Clan McLeod. Pleasure to meet you, old boy. Or you'd have, an American like, really just destroying, that accent. Oh, I'm Conor McLeod of the Clan McLeod. Oh, this is supposed to be Scottish, isn't it? Well, crap. I guess we're Irish now. You know, when you hear his approximation of the Scottish accent in the beginning of the movie, and then his approximation of, English spoken language, from lots of different places, you have a sense of this character having traveled. And speaking as a linguist, again, that's, developed the accents, the accent work is pretty tricky in this.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll go on with the next paragraph or two here, but I did want to showcase the picture on the slide in the upper left-hand corner is a picture from Tarzan, and it says Jane, played by Andie MacDowell, proves a civilizing influence on the wild Tarzan, played by Christopher Lambert. And what some people, or a lot of people may not know, is that Andie MacDowell was actually dubbed by Glenn Close because she had too much of a Southern accent, apparently. So yeah, a lot of people did not know that.
What's really weird about the picture is that looks like his character from the beginning of Highlander 2 after
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
And she looks like the chick that Ramirez was hitting on the flight.
Yes. That's a good
What people don't know about the brunette ladies is that like it looks like her.
The article goes on.
Oh, that's just a weird outtake. And I'm like, oh, that's from a completely different movie.
The next paragraph goes, another challenge of working on Highlander has been the action sequences. Quote, this movie is physical, the actor notes, and then adds that in terms of stunt work, I want to do what's impossible. I want to do what it's possible to do. I feel it's very important and I want to do it. Everyone has a different way to move. Everyone has a different way to do things. I'm not saying from a wide shot, it says, I'm not saying from a wide shot it's going to show that it's not the problem. I want to do it. Quote, to climb a ladder, I can do that. I mean, was on Greystoke for about a year, swinging around at 40 feet without any security. I'm not as trained as I was at that time, but climbing a ladder, I can do. Fighting on the rooftop, I can do. Now, if it's to do a backflip and fall on a lower level, that's a stuntman because that's his job. But to climb a ladder, that's my job, part of it at least. That's interesting. Gets into the aspect of stunting there a little bit. He's like, he knows where to stop and let the stuntman take over.
Yeah. Well, like that's really important because especially as the face of the movie, like if he suddenly isn't able to walk or move, that's days and weeks that you lose. Whereas, the stuntman's job is to kind of be expendable and replaceable.
Yep. I'll read the next one here. Another aspect of Highlander's physicality is its locations in the Highlands. Scotland was very hard because of the weather, mainly, Lambert says. It's like 4 seasons in one day, rain, snow, sun, everything. But I've been to some places and I've never seen settings like in Scotland. It's stunning. For a movie, it's a dream. Just to look at, it's fantastic, but it's a hard country, I would say. On the opposite scale of temperature, it's as difficult as Cameroon in the cold weather. It's very strange country. You get to know you get snow on Tuesday night, and on Wednesday it's summer. You think, boy, what's going on? It's impossible. Exactly like that. I liked it. Now I want to comment on that, and I'll let you get the next paragraph that gets into with Sean Connery. What's interesting, the last time I was there in the Highlands with my wife, and we were going to Highlander locations, and we actually drove through northern Scotland, deep in the Highlands, it felt like a different planet. We were pretty lucky that it kind of just stayed, either it was rainy and wet, of course, or just kind of cold, and then we would get a little bit of sunshine. Didn't get too cold, which was nice. But one thing I did notice that going through Scotland, when it rained and you saw the different aspects of the weather, no matter what the weather was, the country was absolutely gorgeous, no matter how the temperature was. Do you remember any of that at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I was there one time in the dead of winter, and it was just stunning when you could, unfreeze the tears that are covering your eyes and looking out at it, because there's just at a certain point, some places are amazing in summertime, but as soon as like the leaves fall, it's like, oh, this sort of sucks. And some places are great in winter, and then you sort of like, like those ski towns. I don't want to be there in the summer. That's stupid, but like Scotland is year round, just amazing.
Yeah, it's
and you want to be there. You want to be from there. You want to breathe the air. You want to have a pint of real ale. And,
it has a certain smell to it. You know, you
yeah,
never forget.
yeah.
And it's the most beautiful country I have visited. It is absolutely.
And if you ever need a reminder, have some scotch.
There you go. All right, hit
You need
the
to forget,
next.
have some scotch.
Hit the next article or next paragraph there.
Okay. It was for the Highland scenes that Sean Connery, himself Scottish, completed his 7 days filming for the movie. Connery portrays Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, Chief Metallurgist, King Philip II of Spain, and I am at your service. Another mortal who trains MacLeod in sword fighting and survival skills. It is great, Lambert says. He's a great guy. He's a very funny man. He's very normal, and that's what I like about people like him. Because if you're a big star, or even a small star, or even no star at all, the day you start thinking you're somebody because of that fact, it's over. You don't stop at this, you just carry on. Lambert's other co-star, portraying the deadly Kurgan, is Clancy the Bride Brown. That is the worst wrestling name I've ever heard.
Have you seen the movie The Bride that he was in?
Oh, where he's Frankenstein? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's inspired casting.
With
much
Sting,
better than when De Niro did it. I very much like to act like him. He's a perfect Kurgan and a very nice guy. Lambert notes, when you face somebody who gives you something as an actor, it's great.
I'm what I'm wondering about this. Okay, so let's touch on the notes about Connery here. He was there for 7 days. It was famous. He made what was it, like $1 million for 7 days, or $2 million? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And I do remember that famous interview though with Clancy Brown, where because he was asked by Connery, "Do you play golf?" and he goes, "No," and it like shut it down. Like he wasn't hanging out with Connery at all outside of filming. I wonder if Lambert played golf. I'm just kind of curious about that. I don't know.
Well, with his eye problems, so that would be a tricky game to play.
This is true. Yeah, a lot of people don't know, but Christopher Lambert does not have the best eyesight.
Also, got to give Lambert props. Talking about Clancy as an actor rather than as a big guy villain. He's talking about the acting and like the skill that goes into it. Because I mean, when you listen to interviews with Clancy Brown, he really does talk about the craft of acting. And as a fellow big guy actor, sometimes they want you to have huge shoulders and stand there menacingly, and they don't care how good you are. And I think it shows the respect Chris has for Clancy, and I think that's an awesome statement to have made.
This is becoming a good interview with him. The next part is called 8-Man Immortal, and if you're looking at the picture here, there's a picture of him as the regal lord savage Tarzan Lambert rules the jungle in Greystoke. The article goes on saying, looking back on Greystoke, which he discussed in Starlog number 84, Lambert is unperturbed that the movie's original 3-hour cut prepared by director Hugh Hudson, Starlog 81, had to be shortened due to the studio pressure. Quote, "I would love to see the 3-hour version," the actor asserts, but the purpose of the American distributor Warner Brothers at that point was to make the movie successful, to make it appeal to people. I would say European audiences, as they are a bit different, can stand a 3-hour movie. And that's why I didn't understand why the movie wasn't shown at 3 hours in England. But the American audiences, and it has been proved, for example, The Right Stuff or Barry Lyndon, big flops in the States, doesn't like 3-hour movies. After 2 hours, 10, 2 hours, 15, it's over. I want to stop there real quick because he's right. And during this time too, I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of theaters were understanding that if you could have more showings during the day, you were making more money at the theater. That's why a lot of films were like an hour and a half at most, hour 45, especially a lot of the action movies. I was just watching Commando. That's like an easy 1 hour, 30 minutes, and then you can get more theaters in there. But a lot of these long movies weren't doing quite as well because people don't want to stay in there as long.
Well, I think also like it wasn't really until Braveheart that you had a long movie be a financial and critical success. And then, a couple of years later, you have Titanic. But I'm of the opinion, I want the long movie. I would love to see the 3-hour cut of Highlander. I would love to see I keep going back for the longer and longer version of The Watchmen every time. They're like, we found 7 extra seconds. And I'm like, I want to see those seconds. I like the story to take time, and I think that's why I love the Highlander series so much, is because you get time to germinate and to grow the characters.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
yeah, the simple economics of it is you have to sell a lot more seats per showing. They all have to sell out for a 3-hour movie.
I had no idea there was a 3-hour version originally of Greystoke, and I just recently saw Greystoke for the first time. Was it last year when we were talking about Time Warp? We're here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Time Warp covers an entire year of movies, and or maybe it was 83, and I think it was 84. Yeah, that's right. And we were talking about this movie, and I had just seen it for the first time, and I wasn't a big fan of it just because some of the animal cruelty that's in it and stuff, and it's kind of a tough watch. But I had no idea there was a 3-hour version of this, and I wonder if that ever existed anywhere. So, yeah. So the article goes on saying that regarding, of course, Greystoke, the problem is that Hugh came up with a finished movie at 3 hours. From what I've heard, fantastic, incredible. I didn't see it because he didn't want me to see it, because he knew I would be very disappointed with seeing it 3 hours, and then suddenly at 2 hours. This movie was a movie at 3 hours, and it was the final cut, and they said they had to cut 50 more minutes. Quote, what I feel is that he did a fantastic job because Greystoke is still understandable. It's still a story, and that's brilliant. He's a fantastic director and a great guy. We'll do another movie. Touch wood, it won't be cut. So yeah, obviously he had a great time in that movie. And that movie, if I remember correctly, was really what shot him into American audiences' consciousness, right?
Yeah, well, and it was a picture of that of him as Lord Greystoke that got him on the radar. Like, they didn't even know that he didn't speak English at this point.
Yeah.
They just saw those eyes, that can't focus beyond 6 feet. And like, oh, that's a warrior. That's somebody that's seen stuff. And even in the picture that you see here, I know actors that have, I couldn't pull that look. And I can scare the crap out of people, but that is.
Are you talking about the one? Are you talking about the current Highlander with him in the ground?
Yeah, the one that, like, him about to face off against him on Facile.
Yes, yeah.
That is a look of no fear, no malice, and like no caring for other humans suffering. Like, that is almost psychotic. That's a hard thing to pull off.
It's one of the most iconic Highlander images. This is what was on our VHS tapes here in the States, with this guy, this common day guy holding a sword. You're like, holy shit, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead and hit the next paragraph here, starting off with Lambert has strong views.
Lambert has strong views about what makes a good movie. I think movies should be entertainment, he observes. People don't go and pay $6 or whatever to sleep. They can stay at home and it's free. They go and see a movie because it's entertaining. If it's not, they don't go, and they're right. The only people you can't fool is the audience. Never. It always worked. There's not one movie that was a huge success without any reason. Armageddon.
Did he say $6 for a movie ticket?
Yeah. That's more than we were paying in Iowa, even in the 90s. So, I mean,
yeah.
But it never existed. It never happened. If you try to fool the audience by having a great poster, or it works the first 3 days and then it flops, it's all over. And I think,
hold on.
Having a bad poster.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because in America, we got that horrible poster of Highlander with a close up of him and his face, and he looks like a pedophile or a murderer.
Yeah,
and it like
Ted Bundy.
Yeah, it looks like what?
He looks like Ted Bundy.
Yes. And all the European posters were much cooler than we originally got for Highlander. We should have gotten this picture here of him getting ready to fight Iman Vasile, in the underground parking lot. This is the picture. This is the poster we should have gotten.
Absolutely. So a movie must make money. In some professional minds, just the fact that it's a commercial movie means that it's a bad movie. Greystoke, at some point, people were saying, yeah, Hugh Hudson, Chariots of Fire. But why is he doing Tarzan? This is going to be terrible. That doesn't mean anything. It's the talent that you have inside you, and Hugh has amazing talent. Russell McKay has an incredible talent, and they're going to make what they feel is a great movie. They work like hell, 18 hours a day. At least they don't cheat the audience. At least they've put everything they could into a movie. That's what's important. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, it's very sad, but it can happen. And I think that's an important point. Like, you can see the work in Highlander.
Yeah.
You can see the skill in camera, in editing, in choreography, in just the blocking. I mean, think about that shot of, uh, Connor walking up to camera in, Scotland and just looking straight at the camera and then moving into that shot of the Mona Lisa
Yeah.
mural.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of technical achievement that you don't expect from an 80s lower budget sci-fi action movie by a few people that nobody's ever heard of.
Yep. All right, I'll wrap us up here.
Okay.
He says, quote, "But a movie is exactly like if in life you could go back to the past in a second, because in a movie you can do things 10 times. For example, you can say, 'I love you' till everyone's happy, till you get it right. Can you imagine to be able to do that in real life? You just made a mistake and they say, 'Cut. Shall we do it again?' Okay, it's fantastic. You can't cheat the people because movies give you that chance to be able to do it again. It's great. That's what a movie is for me." And it goes on to say his next
I gotta stop
movie.
in there for a second.
Yes.
That's getting into my world again there.
Okay.
And part of the reason why I stay out of theater and why I respect the guys that do that so much is because they have one chance to do it right, and it has to be flawless.
Yeah.
I have every chance to do it right once, and I can do it 100 times. Now, I try not to because I know everybody's there and they're hungry and they want to go home. But he's recognizing something kind of important, in the film world. Like you get the chance to do it right finally. I mean, think about what was Live, Die, Repeat, the Tom Cruise movie. Like,
yes,
he figures out how to do it right over the course of.
Love that movie, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, totally underrated. Yeah. But yeah, that's an important distinction. I like that comment.
That's a good call. The article rounds out by saying his next movie, Christopher Lambert, is already lined up. It's The Third Eye, based on the book by Robsang Rampa. He wrote the story about Lama, a Tibetan Buddhist priest who Lambert will portray. And everyone said, this guy is the real Lama. And some people say this guy's not a real Lama. It's impossible. The Third Eye is a big seller, still in print because people still buy it. Christopher Lambert explains, and about 10 years ago, they discovered that this guy was an English plumber who wrote this absolutely incredible story entirely from his imagination. I don't remember this movie. Did you ever learn about this movie? Did it actually happen and come out?
I don't think so, but I think they remade it with Brad Pitt. I want to say
7 years in Tibet.
Yeah, because I think every so often they kind of come up with like, oh yes, the new, I mean, think about the Great White Ninja in Beverly Hills Ninja. Like, like there's, you'll have this, prophesied, savior from, California, suddenly like, oh yeah, I'm the one that has this answer. So, but now it's kind of whitewashing, but back then it was a way to have subject matter take place in a culture that's, not, existing between California and New York. So it was an interesting concept. 7 years in Tibet was absolutely terrible. Brad Pitt's lucky to have had a career after that movie, because
wasn't that one like also 3+ hours too, or something like that? I think
it felt like it. I don't know if it was, but to quote the great Delroy Lindo, I've seen better film on teeth.
Well, I was kind of curious. I'm looking back on the IMDb for Christoph here. So he does Greystoke. He does Subway in '85. I think that was the Luc Besson film. He does I Love You. He does Highlander. Then he does The Sicilian in '87. Priceless Beauty in '88. To Kill a Priest in '88. I don't see that movie on here unless it's something else. I don't know. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it never came to fruition. I guess it happens, right?
Well, that's a thing, like I was saying with, Henry Cavill's Highlander thing. Until you see set photos, I don't believe it. And I was even having a conversation with a couple of my guys, And they're like, yeah, you always talk about these things and they never happen. I'm like, that's film, dude. Like, I could be like attached. I have been attached to probably 3 times as many movies as I've been in, and I've only been fired off of one. But it's like, okay, this goes away. This, suddenly somebody loses funding, somebody gets arrested.
Star Wars fans know exactly what it's like of all these announcements, and nothing comes to fruition. So
But it's a grind, and you just kind of pick up and move on. I was actually supposed to be filming in Los Angeles next month. That's probably not going to happen. Pushing that back quite a ways. But it's the industry. And you keep going.
Well, I did want to let people know that are watching and listening to this too, is I wanted to kind of go into these articles fresh, reading for the first time. So I actually did not read this article until we just did right now. Did you do the same?
No, I read it when you sent it to me a while back, and trying to keep that mindset and remember what this would have been like reading it in '86.
Right.
Even though we're 30 years later now, there's it is interesting kind of seeing how journalism has changed. You think of like a Ranker article. You just get 10 weird little facts about the movie instead of like any insight into what the character or the actor went through.
So what are your final thoughts on this article? This was kind of fun.
My final thoughts is this was a really great way to approach entertainment. I think Starlog had it right as a fan site. I would like to see more, sources go this way. I know we get into it and we like to talk about it. We're a couple of guys, but like we're like among the top Highlander podcasters worldwide. We hosted the convention. I'd like to see more of this type of let's actually go in and talk to the people that are doing it. Before get a feel for who they are instead of just a cattle call. Like, so what's it like working with Ron Howard? What's it like this? What's it like that? Like, get to know the actors, find out what it is that they're doing, why they were chosen. So
it was interesting kind of trying to take myself back into time. If I had read this article, would I have seen Highlander in the theater or searched it out? Because to me, it was not on my radar. And I live in a smaller town at the time, and we didn't get all of, we did get the blockbusters, but there were some smaller movies that came out that didn't reach us. It would go down south, down to LA, because I live north of Los Angeles, about 2 hours. And so we didn't get some of these, or if they did, they were only in for a week. And I don't remember Highlander until it hit the VHS shelves, and so it was nice to kind of go back in time and read this as if I was reading it back in 1986. And I guess I would have been 15 years old reading this. And I think I would have loved reading this and seeing this film in the theater. So,
Yeah. Well, and, I've said before, I heard about Highlander 2 before I heard about Highlander 1, so.
You're not alone. Highlander 2 brought people into the universe. So, Well, this isn't the first one we're going to be talking about when it comes to Starlog, guys. And I want to showcase the next issue that we are going to be talking about here. And the one I'm talking about that we're going to discuss is Highlander, the lowdown on TV's newest Eternal Warrior. And if you're listening to this podcast, I'm holding up an issue of Starlog number 185. Came out in December of this year. And this is showcasing the release of some new Highlander TV series. And we've got Duncan MacLeod and Slan Quince going at it. That's a pretty cool cover right there, Lee.
Yeah, and you got to love whoever staged that to make Adrian look taller than Martin Mull.
I know, right?
Like, we know that's not how it goes.
It must be on a box or something.
Yeah.
And also, too, up in the corner, it says, Old Indiana Jones, The Adventures of His Lifetime. For those of you who may remember, the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles was a thing at the time. So I'm curious to see what other articles we'll explore in this as well. So that's the next issue. Get it yourself if you want to tag along with us. We'll highlight pictures and scans from the article. So there you go. Let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Lee, it's been a lot of fun talking Starlog. What are your final thoughts on it?
This is a nice walk down memory lane. It's also interesting, when you and I talk to, any of the Johns, or any of the guys from Philly, we're looking at this from a non-contemporary standpoint. This is somebody talking about the movie with the star before it comes out.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting way to look at the movie. We were talking about when I hosted that screening of Highlander a few years back and brought one of my students in. I get to see Highlander through somebody else's experience of watching it the first time. And I think this is an interesting way to look at it, because they don't have that benefit of hindsight of looking like, oh, this isn't canon to, whatever, or this was a mistake and they changed this for that. This is just kind of a pure first look. And I think it's really fun to read.
That's a great point. A pure first look at this too. And one of the things too that I love about looking back at old magazines and interviews is that you hear stuff and you read stuff that did not maybe make it in a video interview and stuff, and they'll say something in a magazine that they did not say in that. And I don't know what the press tour was like for Highlander. I'm assuming the original Highlander anyway. I'm assuming it wasn't extensive for him. I'm sure he did a few stops here and there, and obviously Starlog reached out to him, which I thought was great. And I don't know where I don't know if that was a phone article or not, or how it was done that way. It kind of makes, I'm sure a lot of articles back then were done by the phone, maybe, if you couldn't get to him in person. So I'm just kind of putting myself in the interviewer's shoes on how this was done. But, who knew what would become of the Highlander universe after this movie,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, Lee, this, of course, is Blood of Kings. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. And if you're listening, please check out YouTube. For you guys watching on YouTube, thank you so much. We, of course, are part of the Fandom Podcast Network. Lee, tell us how we can get a hold of you, especially with you and your Fight Monkeys as well.
Well, you can find me under my own name, Lee Fillings, on Facebook. You can find me at The Way of the Way or at the Fight Monkeys on Instagram. We also have the Fight Monkeys official page on Facebook. We're posting a lot of stuff there, all of our upcoming projects. Feel free to support us. If anyone out there is making a movie and wants some weirdos from the Midwest that can do anything, and we'll beat Chad Stahelski's price, because he's going to be busy making some Highlander stuff. So we'll just take all of his, we'll take his leftovers. I don't mind. I'm sure Chad's fine with it too. He's a cool dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Where can we find you?
Well, first of all, you can find the Fandom Podcast Network, of course, on YouTube, and our master feed for audio podcasts is fpnet.podbean.com. We're also on Facebook. You can also find us on X and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. But we've also joined Blue Sky. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network there at FanPod Network. I am also on Blue Sky at Spartan Phoenix. You can also find me on Instagram, X, all of the socials at Spartan_Phoenix, and Blood of Kings as well is on X and Instagram. Make sure you check us out there, and please join our Blood of Kings Highlander Fandom Facebook group, where we have a lot of great Highlander fans talking Highlander, and we're showcasing a lot of fun stuff there as well. Also, if you're into Highlander gaming, we have our sister page, Blood of Kings Highlander CCG collectible card game and gaming discussion group page. Make sure you check that out. So please also check us out on all the Apple Podcast, wherever you are listening to podcasts there, and please leave us a review. And also too, if you like, I got my old school Blood of Kings shirt here, but you can also get some Blood of Kings gear on TeePublic. Search Fandom Podcast Network of Blood of Kings, get yourself a shirt there. We get a little kickback every time you buy something there. It helps us keep the lights on here at Joe's. So make sure you check this out. Thank you so much, Lee. This has been a lot of fun. Looking forward to the next episode, talking some Highlander in Starlog, man.
Absolutely, man. It's going to be great.
All right. And I'm Kevin on behalf of Lee, and thanks everyone for listening. Join us again next time here on the Fandom Podcast Network for another episode of Blood of Kings. That sensation you are feeling is the quickening. We are one. We are immortals.
Farewell, dear shitheads.
See you guys next time. Thank